Chapter 8. The Runaway Cart. "Please, Dad, see if any of the gifts were stolen from the sleigh," Pam begged, as she looked up at the Santa Claus on the roof of the trading post. "Indeed I will," Mr. Hollister said. After setting the ladder firmly in place, he climbed up. Pete followed, carrying the poncho. "Is anything gone?" he asked, as his father finished counting the brightly colored gift boxes, tied with bright ribbons of all colors. "No, I'm glad to say. Nothing has been touched." He called the good news down to Pam. "Someone could have been planning to, though," Pete said. "Wouldn't it be safer to keep the gifts in the store?" Mr. Hollister said he felt that Shoreham had such good police protection, no one would dare climb onto the roof and steal the Christmas packages. "Besides," he continued, as Pete spread his poncho over the gifts and tucked it in, "I understand the police patrol this street constantly every night." Relieved to hear this, Pete followed his father down the ladder, then returned it to the store. As they drove home, Sue snuggled against her mother and fell fast asleep. When they reached home, Mr. Hollister carried his littlest daughter up to her bedroom. She was undressed without waking and did not open her eyes again that night. Meanwhile, Ricky had found notice of a telegram which had been attached to the front doorknob. His father at once telephoned the office about it and learned the message was from Mr. Vega. "Know nothing about note tied on burro. Let me know answer when you solve mystery. Greetings to all, including Domingo." "Huh," said Ricky. "Now we'll have to start all over again." He cupped his chin in his hands. Who could YIF be? "I have an idea," said Pam suddenly. "Maybe the pilot or someone else on the cargo plane did it. Let's call up the airport and find out." Mr. Hollister made the call and talked with an official of the airline. The man checked the names of all those working for the company, but not one of them had the initials YIF. "Oh dear," Pam sighed. "How can we ever find out?" Next morning, Ricky was up early to clean Domingo's stall and feed the burro before leaving for school. He also wanted to be alone with him, because the boy was secretly teaching the little donkey to do some tricks. "Shake hands," he ordered, and Domingo obediently put up his right front hoof. For this, he received an apple. Next, Ricky held the burro's head between his hands and swung it from side to side, all the while saying, "Do 2 and 2 make 5?" Then he let go and repeated the question. Domingo merely stared. "Oh dear," Ricky said. "Well, I'll give you another lesson after school. You have to have all your tricks ready by Christmas." At school that day, Ricky's teacher said they would make chains of colored paper for the school's big tree to be used in the Christmas pageant. She gave the children little jars of white paste and scissors. "You may start right away," Miss Barry said. Ricky's eyes twinkled. He loved to dabble in paste. For a while he worked carefully and made a long string of red, green, and yellow circles. "And now we'll make some paper lanterns for the tree," the teacher said. She made one, then added, "This is the way you paste the handle onto the top of the lantern." She fastened a thin strip of paper to the top. Ricky made one, then he decided to hang a long chain onto the lantern. "But I need more paste," he told himself. "I'll get some from Jimmy." He was the boy sitting behind him. Ricky turned quickly and leaned over, just as Jimmy lifted his paste jar. Squish! Ricky's turned-up freckled nose went straight into the jar. "Oops!" Jimmy exclaimed. He burst out laughing at the gooey sight. All the children looked around as Ricky touched his nose. Now his fingers were white, too. When the other youngsters saw this, they giggled. This made Ricky feel silly. He picked up his Christmas chain and pasted it on the tip of his nose. "Look at me, I'm a Christmas tree," he said, and everyone, including the teacher, laughed. "You'd better go wash your face and hands," she said, and Ricky went to do this. When he returned, Miss Barry was saying, "And now I want to talk about decorations and gifts for some unfortunate people." She explained that a very poor family lived not far from the school. Wouldn't it be nice to make up a Christmas basket of food for them? All the children agreed, and Miss Barry suggested that they bring money which they would earn themselves if their parents agreed to the idea. The pupils clapped their hands and said they would like to earn the money. "I know how I'll raise some," Ricky said. "With our burro Domingo. Maybe my brother will help me build a cart, and we could deliver orders from my dad's store. I'll bring the money we earn to you, Miss Smith." Jimmy Cox and the other children thought this was a keen idea, much better than shoveling snow or washing dishes to earn money. On the way home from school, Ricky talked the idea over with Pete. "That's super," his brother said. "Hey, Dave," he called to his friend who was passing by. "Ricky and I are going to make a cart for our burro. Want to help us find the parts?" "Sure," Dave replied eagerly. "Say, there are 2 old carriage wheels and an axle in the barn back of our house. They're kind of rusty, but I think they'll do." "Swell," Ricky said. When the Hollisters' girls heard the plan, they wanted to help too. At once Holly said, "I saw part of an old pony cart down in Donna Martin's cellar. Maybe her mother will let us use it." They ran over to Donna's and spoke to her about it. The little girl went upstairs for her mother, who came down at once. "Yes, you may borrow the cart top," she told the Hollisters. "I used it when I was a little girl. I'm sorry the wheels are gone." "We have some," Ricky said quickly. "Come on, fellas, let's get the cart." All the children trooped down cellar to see it. The 4-foot wicker body, with facing seats and an opening at the back, was just what they wanted. The boys lugged it out the back to the backyard, then went off for the carriage wheels and axle in Dave's barn. They found them under an old hayloft, lying beside a big rake. "Yikes," said Ricky, "they're neat." Some harness hung on a nail above the wheels. "Maybe you could use this too," Dave offered, as he pulled it down and blew off the dust. "Sure," said Pete. The 2 wheels were still in good condition, even though rusted and cobwebby. And they looked a bit big for the cart top, but this made no difference to the Hollisters, who rolled them out of the barn and over to Donna's house. Dave followed with a wrench, screwdriver, hammer, bolts, and screws. Turning the cart top over, Pete examined the wooden floor and decided that the best place for the axle was a foot from the front. He forgot entirely that there should be proper balance. When the axle was attached, it stuck out beyond each side about a foot. And after the oversized wheels were set on, they lifted the cart a little higher than it was supposed to be. "It's funny, but it's nice," Holly remarked. Proudly, Pete got between the shafts and trundled the cart to the Hollister driveway, followed by the other children. "I'll get Domingo," Pam offered. She held the burro while her brothers put on the harness. When he was hitched to the cart, the basket tilted badly toward the front. No one cared about how odd this looked, though. Ricky wanted the first ride, but Pete said, "Pam, you try it." She let the burro go, but before she could climb the step into the cart, Zip came bounding up to them. With one great leap, he landed in ahead of her. "I guess Zip wants to be the first rider," Holly chuckled. But the children's smiles quickly turned to looks of alarm as Domingo, frightened by Zip's leap, bolted down the driveway. As the children chased him, calling for Domingo to stop, they were surprised to see that Zip stayed inside the cart. The collie looked unconcerned as Domingo raced into the street and headed toward town. "Stop, Domingo, stop!" the Hollisters kept shouting, but the burro seemed determined to give Zip a good ride. Suddenly a car came toward the cart, and the children held their breaths. The burro veered off to the right, but one wheel of the cart hit the curb. A second later, the bolt came loose, and the wheel flew off. The cart stopped abruptly. As the wheel jumped over the sidewalk, Zip leaped out to chase it. The wheel rolled rapidly across the lawns of several houses. Pete and Dave, fast runners, raced off to catch the wheel before it struck something or someone. But it had too much of a head start. Suddenly, Pete shouted, "Dave, look!" The wheel skidded on a patch of snow, changed its course, and sped directly toward the glassed-in porch of a beautiful white house. Holly held both hands over her eyes and shrieked. The wheel was sure to crash through the lovely window. To make matters worse, there was a gentle slope in the lawn, and instead of stopping, the wheel began to roll faster. Zip seemed to think this was great fun. He cavorted along beside the rolling cartwheel, barking happily. In a split second, Pam, who had almost caught up to the boys, had an idea. "Zip! Zip!" she shouted. "Stop that wheel! Get it, boy!"